I'm happy to welcome you to this second part of our policy conference on the Project Chain program and kicking off the Project Chain program activities. I see participants are joining in still, so I will go slowly through the agenda and then we'll start with this part straight. So a couple of housekeeping rules for the conference as this morning. If you can mute your microphone when you're not speaking, that would be great. And you can switch on the video if you want to speak. Otherwise, to help us with the recording and the data, we would ask you to switch them off. The meeting is recorded to support the documentation, and the recording will be also published. And please be aware that your name is displayed in the list of participants or in the chat window when you interact there. And we invite you to ask questions via the chat as well, be it technical questions or also questions to our panelists and speakers or to our team. What will we talk about this afternoon? So this afternoon we'll have a short introduction of what we understand by the Project Chain program and what we want to do with this program for the joint programming platform of Smart Energy Systems. And then we have the pleasure to welcome Hélène Chraye for a keynote on Project Chain program and how this accelerates the integration of the energy system, or how that can accelerate this integration. Then we will also have a panel discussion on this and different funding opportunities for project partners and how to streamline these funding opportunities. And we'll end before the coffee breaks with just some questions to the audience. Then we'll go on a coffee break, and after the coffee break, we'll work in group sessions to define a little bit ideas for this Project Chain program and ambitions that we can then work on with the joint programming platform Smart Energy System team and also the team of all interested participants. So first a short introduction. So what do we really mean by Project Chain program? We started from this idea that EU and transnational projects are aiming to answer joint challenges and bring about change in policy, society, and the economy. And that based on the project and the funding specificities, so the rules of the funding program, for example, project will address specific issues in a specific way and bring targeted solutions. And these solutions need to be put together and continued and built on to provoke the change and create impact. So the idea that maybe in the framework of one specific project, we don't necessarily reach directly the impact we want to create, but we need to scale up ideas and develop them to actually go to the impact dimension. And so the project chains as such can be defined as a succession of projects that are addressing the same challenge from the technology development stage into the implementation and adoption. So the funding programs or the funding partners that join the Project Chain program work as a network in providing information and streamline funding opportunities for different EU partners to develop their projects in different programs or with different type of funding. How does that look? This is a concrete example how what this could look like. So imagine we are choosing one topic linked to smart energy system integration, and then we have a couple of JPP SES projects on this, and also maybe an Horizon project. And these projects are focusing on developing new technologies with the same focus. Then they, to grow towards adoption and deployment, they would have to test the developed technologies which could happen in, for example, the framework of a technical lab or a living lab, and or in the framework of another project that is funded by a program that could, for example, focus on this testing and piloting phase, and which could be the case, for example, for the Interreg program. In the next step, the challenge could be addressed when the solutions have been tested. They could be brought into the next level of implementation and reaching the policy impact. And this could be, for example, done in the framework of, for example, an Interreg project or an innovation fund project. So with another type of financing, they could reach this part of implementing and developing impact. And then we could go into deployment and adoption in the society, for example, in a privately financed project or in the cooperation with the industry or the private sector. So this is just an example to show to you how from a certain challenge we can go in different stages of development, and which may require different type of financing, and create like this a project chain that bring from, yes, the technology development into deployment adoption. And what we want to do with the project chain program is to act on these arrows, so on this to make it easier to go from these different stages and access this different type of funding to enable the solutions to go into adoption, deployment, and policy impact. So this is the idea in short and in a very schematized, easy way to present. We had already a session to present this idea at the European EU Sustainable Energy Week on the 13th of October, where we discussed this and discussed also in breakout sessions on concrete next steps to develop these project chains. And so we want to bring the discussion further today as well. And what we would like to establish is the cornerstones of this program. What is important? What should we keep in mind? And what should we consider when developing strategies, when developing a roadmap to how to streamline these funds and enable this project chains to happen. And so now we will discuss this in our session. And I don't know if Hélène Chraye could join already. And we welcome her to present on this.
We don't.
Hélène Chraye has some technical issues with WebEx. Apparently, the Commission has some technical issues regarding WebEx, so I'm in contact with her, and she will connect via phone probably soon.
Okay. Good.
So then let's go ahead. Come on, let's go ahead with our panel.
Yeah, I mean, we can, if you want to go ahead with the panel, or we introduce her and give a couple of minutes.
They were trying to connect Hélène for a while. I'm not sure if we can wait, but all our panelists are on board.
Yes, I think so. So I would welcome to the panel Viktorija, Sebastian, Marx, Viktorija Dobravec, Thomas Strasser, and Natalie Samovich. In the meantime, I've read that someone joined by phone. I'm wondering if this might be Hélène. Can you hear us or can you talk?
Let's wait for a second.
Then we can start with the panel, I would say. And I would invite our panelists to switch on your videos. so that we can see you.
And sorry, do you hear me now?
Yes.
It's Hélène Chraye.
Yes. Okay.
So you hear me? I am connected by phone.
Yes, we can hear you. Then
I'm sorry for I've been trying since half an hour to join you at anything,
okay.
even going to the program of the conference, but nothing is working with WebEx.
Okay, but thank you that you have managed to join now. It's great. It's perfectly in time for the keynote. And so yes, Hélène Chraye joined us, and you have a lot of experience in the French administration, in the European Commission, with topics linked to energy, but also transport and diplomacy. And now you are heading the unit in charge of designing the implementation of the European research policy for clean energy transition. And this is why we are very happy to welcome you as a keynote speaker here. And yes, I would leave the floor to you now for your speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, I'm sorry to be a bit late due to these things. I think the Green Deal is green and digital. I think we have quite a lot of progresses to do on digital. And especially to allow the people who are not old but not young, like me, to manipulate this type of system easily and without getting extremely upset by the system. So I again apologize. So I am indeed in charge. I'm in charge of designing the research and innovation policy for clean energy transition to support the Green Deal. The implementation is performed by the executive agency. To really link it to the topic of this panel, I am very happy to be here because it's something which is among the priorities of our policy. This is to have a full value chain and especially to link more the research and innovation part to the deployment side. Of course, research and innovation programs, they don't do deployment. We cannot fund it. We are funding research and innovation. However, even doing that, we can prepare for deployment and we can help for the deployment. And that goes in a few very specific directions. The first one is the synergy. We have many possibilities of synergies, and I will. Non, pas maintenant, monsieur. Vous pouvez fermer les portes, s'il vous plaît. Sorry, it was the cleaning people. So it's not my day, obviously. Huh? So synergies. We have synergies with the diversity of possibilities. A big block is, of course, synergy with the private side and how research and innovation policy will help investment from the private side to implement the good things coming from research and innovation. At the European level, we have quite a lot of deployment programs, but I will quote really, especially two. Which are the Innovation Fund, of course, but also the Connecting Europe facility. So what we are trying now to do is to harmonize the programming so that there could be a continuity. We don't work on A and deliver on A while the Innovation Fund would like to invest on B, but that is facilitated because the whole of the EU is working with the objective of the green and digital transition. And the second is to try to build bridges and links between the programs. And this is a little bit more complicated because these programs have different rules and different programming schedules also. So we need to really work more on that side. But a good example of, I hope will be a success, is the cooperation with the Catalyst Fund. Between Horizon Europe, the Catalyst Fund, and the the investment bank, the European Investment Bank. We will mobilize up to 120 million euros to accelerate the deployment and rapidly commercialize innovative technologies by leveraging private funds and directing investments in EU-based projects in some specific sectors, and especially clean hydrogen, sustainable aviation fuels, DAC, which is direct air capture, and long-duration energy storage. So this is a good example of a private, a research and innovation, and a public investment side. It's a tripartite agreement. Research and Innovation Fund will fund the part which is still linked to innovation or research, but we link it to the overall investment to come from Panellist and from the EIB. And this will be managed not by the same people like me, but by executive agencies and by Panellist, by the EIB, sorry. Another big block of synergy in this configuration, in this panorama, is the synergy with national programs. It is also a domain where we still have quite a lot to do, but where we have quite progressed. You know about Eranet, of course. This is an Eranet event in a way. But we have proposed, no, it's not us, it's member states have proposed to transform Eranet into a co-fund under Horizon Europe. And this co-fund, to our great but very positive surprise, got 6 times more commitment from member states than the Eranet. So this is encouraging because it shows that we are answering really a need with this co-fund. It is called Clean Energy Transition, and the EU is funding 30%, but the member states are initiating the proposals and funding 70%. This is a very big challenge. We expect it will work, but we still need a lot of effort. And this means to transform the Eranet to something much bigger and more systematic. This is for the block on synergies. But we have also, when we speak about a project value chain, we have also to work on not only on synergies between what exists, but on having a vision which is on the value chain as a whole. And this is what is now foreseen in the new era approach, European Research Area approach, with the technology value chain, where there will be a research and innovation, strategic research and innovation agenda for some big blocks of technology, so from A to Z, let's say. That is the first approach, and one of the examples is what we are currently achieving or trying to achieve, let's not be vanitous, trying to achieve for hydrogen. So we had a strategy, European strategy on hydrogen. Then in this European strategy, there was a full chapter on research, which was presenting how we could better hook the part on research into this value chain from A to Z. That involves very basic things which look maybe small, but which are extremely important. Like, for instance, the joint undertaking we have on hydrogen, which is now communicating to the Alliance on Hydrogen, communicating the results of positive projects. So this is one example. Another example is the Alliance on Batteries, which has integrated a substantial part on research, looking on future technologies on batteries, while the Alliance is investing on also on current technologies deployment. So it means that if we want to work on project value chain, we have to look at each and every step of this value chain, take a holistic approach, but for that also demonstrate that there will be a result on that, an impact of this approach. Step, holistic, go back to step, and go back to a holistic approach. So this kind of dialogue between the various steps and the various programs with the overall approach is very important for us, because it aims at keeping track towards the objective. And the last point, which is also very important, is the cooperation between the entities themselves. So the funding entities, the private funding entities, the funding programs, and the deployment programs. Let's say funding, meaning research on one side and deployment. And very often, it's not easy. I just had now the difficulty to communicate with IT systems and IT people because of their specific language. It is clear that, let me take one example, which is linked to your approach. When we speak about de-risking, if I speak on de-risking an investment to a private banker, he will look at what? At my capacity of funding, or the risk, the financial risk it entails to work with me. If I speak about de-risking to a scientist, he will look on the impact on health, or impact on our environment, or technology risk. And without these two types of risk, we won't have this value chain. And that is up also, and that's my last point, up to the EU and the authorities, the national authorities too, to have a full coverage, a full environment which is de-risking, both financially but also technically, to allow important or interesting technologies to access the market. And that goes by providing infrastructure, by also providing common data and exact data, accurate data, trustworthy data, let's say. But that works also then on preparing for what will be the environment for deployment, like skills, for instance. It's not worth to be the best in a technology and to deploy it if you don't find the workers to produce it, for instance. So all that is very clear as bits and pieces. The challenge will be to put them together. And that's why I'm so happy to be here today, because I see your initiative as a real valuable one to show in one example how it will work. Just to mention that this week, Thursday and Friday, there will be the 15th Set Plan Conference in Slovenia, which will look at especially at adjusting the set plan to the new challenges. And one of the new challenges will be indeed to answer the needs flagged in the COP26 to accelerate the deployment of clean energy transition while preparing the future technologies. This is the main challenge which is in front of you, and if you can if you can draw something which will give a positive example, that will be really great. So I wish you all success in your discussions, and be sure that we will look to your conclusions with a very high level of attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hélène, and very glad you could connect, and thank you very much for this inspiring keynote that I think will give us a lot of motivation also to work fully on this.
Julia, can I ask a question to Hélène?
Sure.
Hélène, Ludwig is here. Remember when we had this other session, was it a year ago or so? At the end you said, it's not going to work if the designers of the new electric vehicles will not manage to give me a place for my handbag in the car. I don't know if you use this example very often, but how can we in research, innovation, development make sure that the designers make sure that they meet the need of the people at the end?
Well, that was an example because I have a four-wheel drive which is not a diesel. Huh? I never bought a diesel in my life, but which is very very good in terms of pollution. It's not polluting a lot, but which is a four-wheel drive for which women are the main consumers, indeed, especially a woman of my age. And strangely, it's totally built for a man. That's something. It's a joke, but it's a joke which is showing that recognizing the needs of the consumer is a priority. And I am always very frustrated when I hear we should convince people. No. I would like to quote the German Consumers Association. They had a sentence which I find is very wise, saying that every citizen is his or her own expert. People know their needs. And when I look at the Eurobarometer saying that around 20% of the European citizens are convinced that they will not benefit from new technologies, it's not for them. It's not adjusted to their needs, or they don't understand it, or it is not accessible for price or distance or whatsoever. I mean, I have a problem. If we serve 80% or 75% of the population, I have a big problem. So the adjustment to the needs comes from integrating at the beginning of this project value chain the real needs of the people, and for that you have to ask them. It's not the scientists which will decide what are the needs of the people. You see? I would like to quote another example. Sorry?
Maybe all funding programs should require that at the beginning of such a chain, it's mandatory to do a customer research or something.
We call it impact assessment in a way, but impact is exposed, so I'm not sure it is the right wording. But we try to do it more and more and to take into account the right way for me, but it's personal. To do it is to try to characterize these needs and to put them as a external, I mean, to internalize these which are currently social costs. They are looked at it at the end, but they should be looked at the beginning, as well as impact on environment and sustainability. These are currently external costs which are taken into account at the end of the process, and both social and environmental costs should be reintegrated all along the value chain of your project. Mm-hmm. We have this discussion, for instance, on renovation wave, on new European Bauhaus, because if you do something extremely nice, but you don't anticipate, for instance, that we have an aging population, but then you put aside a part of the population, and it's not right. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. We will take that into account in our panel discussion in a minute from now. Thank you. Can you stay with us? Do you want to stay with us for a while, Hélène, or I think you drop out now?
It will be difficult, and also it's difficult for me to understand the panel because I'm just on the phone. So I would be pleased to stay if I could access really the full discussion, but here will be complicated. But if you still need some questions, please feel free to raise it by mail. That will be a pleasure to answer.
I know that you will support us at your best. Thank you.
And thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. Julia, do we go ahead?
Thank you. Yes, we will start with the panel. I'm wondering if Michael wanted to comment, because I see no. Okay. Then we'll go on with our panel. And thank you for your patience to our different panelists. And I will ask you to switch on your cameras again. Viktorija, Sebastian, Viktorija Dobravec, Sebastian Marx, Thomas Strasser, and Natalie Samovich. Do you want to proceed to the panel, or should I go ahead?
Julia, you said I have to moderate it because I forced the people into 99 seconds self-introduction. So you wanted me to make sure that they stick to the 99 seconds. I think Thomas knows the game already. I think you have done it. I give you a head start by explaining a bit who you are, Thomas. Thomas is from the AIT, Austrian Institute of Technology, and he's a senior scientist in the Center for Energy. He did a lot in strategic development of smart grid automation, and recently he led or is still leading the project Enercoutim on which is on interoperability. But what else has to be said about you, Thomas Strasser? You have more seconds, 99 seconds.
Just for my introduction. Or for the, I have prepared also some slides that comes later. Is that correct?
Yes.
The project.
Yes.
Can you show the slide?
Yeah, this is for your introduction. I think we'll go into the.
You can.
Right.
Shall we show the slides for your 99 seconds or later when we are in the discussion?
We can do it now. I would say. Let's do it now. Okay. Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Ludwig, for the introduction and for the invitation. Yeah, as already has been said, I'm Thomas. I'm from the Austrian Institute of Technology, and I'm leading a European project, or kind of a project chain. It's now Enercoutim 2. Can you please go to the next slide? Related to smart grid validation and testing. So we are focusing our work on especially on validation and testing methods and corresponding infrastructure. So we are extending and advancing research infrastructure and corresponding smart grid and DR laboratories, smart energy systems laboratories as well. Beside that, also we work on the education of researchers and engineers. Can you go please to the next slide? I want to introduce also very briefly a project chain. It's a bit a different one. We started more than 15 years ago with some ideas on DR testing, pre-standardization, building DR labs. That was the DELAB project. That was a starting base with 12 partners. Out of that, FP6 NOE, the DELAB Association emerged out of where lots of us are partners. And then we had 3 projects in a row, including the Enercoutim 2 project, which we are currently running. That's a research infrastructure project, so where we're focusing on developing and extending validation and testing methodologies, corresponding tools, simulation tools, lab-based testing methodologies. And we're integrating them in our laboratories, smart grid, DR, and smart energy systems laboratories. And the nice thing is we share that information to others, to external partners, to external stakeholders, like the smart energy systems projects, where we're also an associate partner and lab partner. So our main advantage, our goal here is to further develop methods, but also to share it, so that nobody needs to reinvent the wheel, that the tools that are available, the methods, also the infrastructure, that they can be reused. I think that could be a really big advantage also in this very specific project chain. And as you see here, we have also the developments starting from DR in 2005 to going to smart energy systems nowadays. And now it comes my last slide. As already said, we are sharing our laboratories for free, so everyone can get free access. The only requirement is that you have some interesting ideas about validation and testing, maybe from your smart energy systems projects, and you can apply for, you need to write a very small proposal describing your ideas, and we can support, if this proposal is successful, you in the validation work. I think it's a great opportunity, also supported by the Horizon 2020 Research Infrastructure Program.
Thank you, Thomas. That was close to 99 seconds. Close enough, at least. We invited you because we believe that alongside this entire chain, we definitely always need to take care that everything works together. This interoperability issue is maybe a cross-cutting question throughout the entire chain. We will discuss that later. Thank you. The next, if I look at the slides, we have some slides received from Viktorija Dobravec, right? She is the project manager at the Interreg Central Europe program. You will explain what it is. but you are responsible for monitoring and support in implementation of energy projects. So I guess support also means that you talk to the project, what's the next after the project? So how do you link left and back and forward and right with your project? Is that part of your task? Viktorija.
Yes, Ludwig, thank you for this introduction. And indeed, of course, I'm a project manager at the Interreg Central Europe program, where we closely work with our projects, with our lead partner, and among others, of course, we discuss this sustainability and transferability aspect, which is really the core and very important part of our project. I have a presentation about the Interreg Central Europe program in general, but should I give this now, or there is a space later for this, also linked to the slides?
Julia, what do you think? We have saved some time.
Yes, you can go onto the presentation. That is also an interesting maybe information for project partners who would like to develop their solutions. So after, for example, the end of a JPP SES project. So maybe yes, we can go on now.
Let's go on.
So then let me tell you a couple of words about Interreg. So far we have heard, and I believe all of our participants are very much informed about different research and innovation program on the one hand side, and also programs that are on the other side, focused more on bigger investments, such as from the European Investment Bank. However, Interreg programs are something a little bit different, and the main objectives of the Interreg program is really to promote harmonious economic, social, and territorial development of the European Union as a whole. So for us, cooperation is at the core of our program. And as such, Interreg Central Europe is one of the funding programs of the EU cohesion policy objective, European territorial cooperation. It provides a framework for the implementation of, as I said, joint actions and policy exchanges between national, regional, and local actors from different countries. And in this respect, we have three types of Interreg has three types of program, which are cross-border, transnational, and interregional. And when we talk about Interreg Central Europe program, this is one of its transnational program, which covers regions and cities from 9 EU member states that you can also see in this map. This is Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria, Hungary, Slovenia, Croatia, but also it covers selected regions from Germany and Italy. In the new programming period, which lasts for the next 7 years, we cover 81 NUTS2 regions. And in total, we have funding from the ERDF of 224.6 million euros. You can go to the next slide. Just last Monday, or to be precise, on 15 November, we have opened our first call for proposals within this programming period, and the budget allocated to this first call is approximately 72 million euros, where really the breakdown per different priorities is presented on this slide. And it has been defined based on each priority, which means that each priority has different specific objectives. For example, if we look at a priority 2, which is cooperating for a greener Central Europe, this one has 5 specific objectives, and might be the most interesting one for our audience because it covers topics such as energy, climate change, circular economy, environment, and also urban mobility. In this programming period, ERDF co-financing rate from the Interreg Central Europe is 80% for all the participating countries. And if we go to the next slide, in this programming period, we co-finance transnational projects that cooperates, as mentioned before, towards smarter, greener, better connected, and more integrated Central Europe. To better understand our program, it focuses on pilot solution, building capacity, and facilitating knowledge transfer. What this means? This means that Interreg Central Europe program should implement cooperation actions, which include development and implementation of strategies, action plans, tools, trainings, pilot actions, and related solutions. And when we talk about the investments, we do co-finance small investments that are necessary for the implementation of pilot action. However, we do not finance large investments, but we do finance preparation of such investments. And to go to the last slide, who we actually fund and who is eligible for our funding. These are a transnational partnership of both public and private institutions, where of course focus is on institutions from 9 Central Europe countries. And important aspect for which I started this presentation is transnational cooperation. And when I say transnational cooperation, in our terms, this means a partnership of at least 3 partners from 3 different countries, where on average how our project looks, they last for 3 years and they have budget from 1 to 2 million euros. This is a little bit about Interreg Central Europe. Of course, if you want to learn more, please visit our program website. The link is on the last slide, or follow the social media. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Viktorija. Sebastian, not in your private life, but professionally, did you ever meet Viktorija?
No.
She says that she prepares or she finances preparation of investment, and you then manage the investment. You should meet. What are you doing in your organization, SMAPP or SMAPP, or how do you pronounce it?
SMAPP. So yes, thank you very much. Indeed, I'm happy to meet Viktorija and all of you. So I'm just to be sure, should I also run my presentation now, or should I?
Yeah, come on, let's go on. We change agenda. We are flexible.
That's fine. So just very briefly, my name is Sebastian Marx. I'm an independent consultant based in Brussels. Been here for 25 years, working on project development. And I'm here today to talk to you about the European Innovation Fund. I've been involved in the first round of call for proposals that has been concluded now, both for the so-called small and large-scale projects. I have also been working previously with the NER 300 program, which was the predecessor to the Innovation Fund. So I'm happy to share a couple of insights and discuss with you the possibility to use Innovation Fund in your project chain. So very, very briefly, what is the Innovation Fund? It is a program which now then runs in the 2nd year. It's financed by the European Emission Trading System and has a budget of, well, in the first call it was about 1.1 billion euros, sorry, and it will be 1.5 in the second call that is now open. It focuses on projects that are highly innovative, that demonstrate their functioning, but also really preparing for market deployment. The projects are mature, so they are both from a technical and financial point of view relatively mature. And the main thing is that you need to demonstrate the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that you save by using this project. The Innovation Fund supports projects in energy-intensive industries, in renewable energy generation, in energy storage, and in carbon capture and storage and use. Yes, well, just one brief comment still on the first slide. As you see, and that was a bit what Julia presented as well. So this is not about research. You have to have done your research. You will have to have done some demonstration of the results, and then the Innovation Fund can kick in. So it's really about large-scale demonstration and really putting the technology into use. And then you, of course, also have other funding instruments like the Connecting Europe facility, like Helen mentioned before, or Cohesion Funding, Modernization Fund, the Just Transition Fund is another one, where you can finance infrastructure if you then replicate this system that you demonstrate in the Innovation Fund. So we can move to the next slide. So the Innovation Fund has two different calls for proposals, what they call large-scale projects and small-scale projects. So the main difference is the size of the projects. The large-scale projects have a budget, capital expenditure of over 7.5 million, and the small scales are capped at 7.5 million. The small scales are a little bit easier from the application point of view, but they are still very complex. There is the second call ongoing for the large-scale projects that open now 26th of October and closes in March. And what the grant is doing, it can cover 60% of relevant costs. Now, it's very important to understand that the relevant costs are basically linked to the extra costs that the innovation that you will deploy brings and the expense that that brings you compared to using a traditional technology. So these are the eligible costs. For the small scale projects, it's capped at 7.5 million, minimum is 2.5 billion euro. There is a second call, it will actually be published on the 15th of March. And the cost calculations are a bit easier for both of these projects now have a one-stage procedure. So it opens, as we see, 26th of October, it closes in March. The first round of proposals were a two-stage proposal. That's why I mentioned it here. You have 5 criteria that are evaluated. It's the maturity of the project, meaning both technical maturity and financial maturity. You will need to demonstrate that the financing of the project as a whole is closed within 4 years of the submission. So you really need to have a very strong commitment from your own organizations or investors or to really demonstrate that you will co-finance this. The technical maturity is assessed, so you cannot go with ideas that are not proven and tested at all. You need to be able to show that it has been demonstrated. Maybe it's one of the labs, like Thomas mentioned before, but you need to demonstrate that that solution is scalable to meet the project that you are applying.
Quick question, Sebastian, in the small scales, the relevant costs are the CapEx. Is it also 60% of grant?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, you also are only financed if you show that you have a very strong degree of innovation. So you cannot just buy an off-the-shelf product. It's clear it's the Innovation Fund. So of course they finance innovation and nothing else. You need to demonstrate that the technology is scalable and replicable. And you need to demonstrate that quite substantially, both that you as an organization coming in with the project can scale it up, but you will also have to demonstrate and calculate the potential for the solution if it's broadly replicated. And of course, there is a cost efficiency criteria. So the EU is looking very carefully in seeing how much CO2 are they saving per euro that they are financing. And at the core of this is the greenhouse gas emission calculation. So you need to demonstrate how much greenhouse gas your solution is saving, and over a project lifetime of 10 years. And if you don't demonstrate it, you don't get your money. So it's very clear. You have to be very realistic, but of course, you need also to have substantial amounts of CO2 saved in order to be competitive. You can go to the last slide. So we see we have now just concluded the first round of the Innovation Fund for the large scale. It was published last week. And the small scale a couple of months ago. And what we can see is it's extremely competitive, this fund, especially for the large scale where we have a success rate of 2%. That means you really have to think a couple of times before you enter into an application procedure for this, because they are very complex and take a lot of time to produce the applications. What we also see, you can see in the graphs here, it's not so clear maybe, but the geographical spread of the projects that are actually financed in the large scale is not very broad. Okay, it is financing mainly projects in Scandinavia. We have 2 in Sweden, 1 in Belgium, 1 in Spain, and they are and 1 in Belgium. So there are only these 7 projects that have been funded. You see a lot of other symbols on the map, and these are projects that have received what they call project development assistance. So that is for projects that are not mature enough to get funding. They can get support from the EIB, but it's rather limited support, I would say, from a financial perspective. From the small scale projects, there is a bit higher success rate. We are talking about 14%, so it's still not extremely good, but more manageable. What is interesting with the smaller scale is that you have a much broader sectoral coverage. So the large scale, the 7 projects that were funded, our exception is a photovoltaic plant. The others are linked to hydrogen and carbon capture and storage. With the small scale, we see it's basically taken all the areas covered by the Innovation Fund.
Thank you. Thank you, Sebastian. Just a quick question. I mean, thank you for introducing us to the innovation funds, but what is your role in that? Do you consult people that want to apply, or do you apply yourself, or what is your role?
No, I'm helping organizations who are interested in applying to firstly analyze if it's relevant for them to apply. And I've also been involved, and I was luckily enough involved in one of the projects that got funded. So I'm quite pleased with that. But
in our discussion, then we will see how you can help those that even if they get your help, don't succeed. So maybe we can channel them through this part of the network or the chain. We will see. Thank you for this introduction. Last not least, Natalie Samovich.
Yes.
I'm here. Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Normally, when I introduce her, I say she is wearing 1,000 hats. You don't wear any hat today, but normally you wear a lot of professional hats. Today, I think you are here mostly, I hope, for the IoT, the Alliance of the Internet of Things, because I know that you are involved there a lot in the development of real products. And also with your company, Enercoutim, I think it's a non-profit demonstration innovation platform, but you will explain in 99 seconds. And of course, you get also a bit more time as the others did.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Yes, indeed. It's a difficult and challenging time. Not difficult, I would say challenging times. But for the introduction, in terms of why I'm here, as you mentioned, I'll mention 3 things. So first of all, 10 years ago, we started with the practical experience of implementing, successfully implementing, because it's up and running already for almost 10 years, a solar demonstration platform. And we also part of the validation test lab from last year, and also have the platform listed as well. But it all started as a journey, practical journey on implementing new business model, which became a shared renewable infrastructures model. So I think that's practical experience spearheaded a lot of not only research innovation, but also practical contributions in the research programs. So we've successfully concluded 2 Horizon 2020 projects, where we also have a number of spin-offs. So that practical experience, I think, is also relevant. And yes, as you mentioned, the AUTI head, I'm chairing working group on energy. In the Alliance, AUTI stands for European Alliance of IoT Innovation. It's industrial association. We have more than, I think, now 250 members. And beyond focusing on the innovation projects, policy contributions, and unlocking lots of barriers in the industry for the decarbonization, we also have very much forward-looking strategic research agenda, but also translating into the practical approaches and analyzing the barriers. So within those 3, I think I was asked to contribute towards how the project, the concept and the idea, and as well as the practical approach that was presented by Elaine and shared already during the Sustainable Energy Week, what's the side of the investment and the implementation of and spinning off the business solutions and financing those, what are the barriers and what are the opportunities? That's correct. And then I think during our preparation session, another angle came up related how to engage the consumers and the businesses into this early on, and at which stage. So I have, as Ellen mentioned, also 3 blocks and then a wild card, a list of the suggestions beyond that. So I don't have slides because I think we are one step from the panel discussion, and I thought I will set the tone of just, presenting some of those ideas. I also have a contribution from a colleague of mine at Enercoutim, Teresa Bertrand, who's been engaged with many national level programs before, and so she had also very good suggestion that I will share with you. But let me just jump immediately or pick up from where Mark left off, Mark van Stiphout, in the earlier session today. So he mentioned that we need faster, more efficient pathway towards 2030. We need, which is 2030 is reaching the goals of 55%, right? And at least, and carbon neutral by 2050. So that definitely will take a village. So my first block is around at which level can we accelerate, and at which levels we can jointly within all of those programs that were mentioned, and probably I'm the only one that doesn't have the funding to offer, but share the pain points and the barriers to those, can be accelerated. So there is a lot of monitoring that is taking place already, and we've heard it from many presenters, not only on this session, but before as well. There is also a lot that's being done on the barriers definitions, but maybe not enough on the at which scale barriers definitions. So we've seen this, large scale applications and the smaller scale applications, but still 7.5 million, it's still large scale. So are we monitoring each of the scales, even the ones that fall below, or we're just focusing only on the big tickets, as the language in the
Okay.
goes. So that's one question. On the and what are the KPIs for these levels, for each of those levels, and at which timeline? So then the second block I just would like to mention is the format of smart building indicators is quite successful in terms of trickling into the industry and bringing energy component, building component, and the consumers and the industrial partners engagement, right? So maybe we can have something like this for the chains program, the smart financial energy implementation indicators, and so that we can balance the two sides of the availability of the finance for various scales, and as well as implementation readiness of those. Because it's not only the matter of how long it takes, but also how fast we can do it. Ludwig, you were indicating?
Yes, I tried to interrupt you a bit because you answer all the questions that Julia wanted to raise. But your number 3 input, and then we go to a bit more like a discussion.
Yes, right? I have more. So that's for sure. So also the barriers. So the third block is the barriers to solve. The barriers to solve, I see at least 4. So the new business actors risk mitigation, we are all very comfortable, and all financial institutions are very comfortable with the strong balance sheets. But in the programs, including SES programs, we have also lots of newcomers, startups, medium sizes. So how can we feel more comfortable, but with lesser of a balance sheet, and how we can mitigate the risk there if we want to scale up. Industrial partners, great term for the innovation projects, much needed as one of the stakeholders. But do all the scale-ups have to have an industrial partners? Question mark. And again, this goes into the risk mitigation. So
can we leave it with the question? I'm rushing a bit, Natalie. Please forgive me.
Sure.
You will be back.
But that was not my 99 seconds.
No, that was not your 99 seconds. We changed agenda a bit. So everybody has given their introduction, their views, which can help us, Julia, when we start asking the important questions that we need to be answered for building the chain, right?
Yes, indeed. And so just then the last point that I will mention.
It's not possible to interrupt you. Sorry, I interrupt you, Julia.
Yes. Thank you, Natalie. Maybe we can go into. Sorry.
Yeah, we will be back with Natalie, but I think you have a plan for the rest of the session.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's also quite interesting the way it's going. I think I would like to go back to all of the speakers. I think we've had a good overview of what you're working on and how your programs or your input can fit in this idea of a project chain. So in this sense, you presented what your programs are offering, or the funding that is available, or the testing for the ERIGRID project, etc. And now I think I would like to ask you all what you think of this idea of the project chain, and how concretely your initiative could fit in and could contribute to that, and what you think is important to keep in mind when we are developing this program now. Yes, so from your point of view, what would be important to keep in mind? So maybe we start again with Thomas Strasser, and if you want to tell us what your opinion is on this.
Yeah, from our side, from the Enercoutim 2 side, what we can support is provide our infrastructure, our methodologies, our knowledge that we gained in the validation and testing different concepts, starting from components up to whole systems. As you know, testing systems or system integration is not an easy task. You can go to make demo projects or pilots. This is really appreciated, but it's not always the way to go. So what we are focusing also in our work is on developing extending testing and validation methodologies for system level questions, for example, smart grid systems, voltage control, demand side management. Our activities are quite broad nowadays. We are focusing also on multi-energy systems. So we have some activities looking at how to test electricity grids together with, for example, heat networks. Here, this is overall the topic is not fully new, but also from the validation side, we need to focus also. We need to integrate here different laboratories. We have some partners which are sharing here heat networks and electricity grids on the campus. And I think here you can, in my point of view, profit in SES projects when you have started with some developments, have reached a certain point in time where you have developed your algorithms and you want to test it in a laboratory scale environment. And if you probably have not the environment to do that, then I think we are a good partner. We can share our knowledge, our experiences. We have 20 partners, 20 laboratory partners. I think we have already a quite broad knowledge, and yeah, we know each other since a very long time, and we try to share here the information, also to work towards standardization, improve here future testing and validation methodologies.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thomas, when we do such innovation testing in the Enercoutim, we had it that we start somewhere in this chain, and in the end we do a project with Sebastian with funds in the innovation fund. Where comes the interoperability testing in? Do you test at the end of the development? Do you test in a very early stage, or where should interoperability?
I think it depends a bit on the. I would say that depends a bit on the project itself, on the nature, and so I think it can take place at various stages. At an early stage, in order to check if your basic principles are being fulfilled, but also if projects are more advanced, working on higher TL levels, I think we also can support here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you. And yes, as Ludwig was saying, so after the testing, possibly as we just saw, projects can go to try their chance with the innovation fund. And so, what would be, from your point of view, Sebastian, what could be interesting in this project chain idea, or what should be kept in mind when implementing it?
First of all, I think the project chain idea is very, very useful and very good, and you can, so to say, also funnel through projects and maybe even combine projects to come up to a critical mass which is necessary for the innovation fund. One has to be a bit realistic about the innovation fund because of the really low success rate, especially in the large scale projects. So what I think would be useful for you is that once you have gone through the chain and you enter into the space where the innovation fund is a potential, you should really conduct eligibility checks and competition analysis. Because, you know, it is a lot of effort, it takes time, you will need a lot of help to do your application. And that is an investment that you only should do if you see that you really have a chance to be among the funded projects. So to do some simple checks from the basic eligibility criteria that are there, but also more, how are the projects really meeting the 5 evaluation criteria of the innovation fund? and are you competitive? And the more, now we have the first round of results, so we will be able to analyze it even better. And the longer we go, we will collect, of course, more experience with the Innovation Fund and can compare any project ideas you have to successful projects before you then take the decision to go in. I think that is a very, very important thing to do for the project chain. Because it looks very attractive, the Innovation Fund, and it is attractive. It's a good funding rate. It's quite good amounts that you can get, but it is a complicated process, and you need to be aware of the very slim success chance before you take the decision to jump.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, what I keep from what you just said is also to have a well present when trying to set up such a project chain program. And like also Hélène said in the keynote, the different aspects and the different specificities of each fund. And if we want to streamline the funding to be able to help project partners also in identifying not only what would make sense as a fund, but also in how far they may have a chance to access it in the end, etc. So that could be also something to keep in mind when developing this program, I guess.
If I may comment on that, Julia, and with all due respect to all the efforts done when it comes to simplification and streamlining, this is something we hear since, I've been working in this sphere for 25 years, and we're talking about streamlining and simplification with every new programming period. And in the end, the results are relatively meager when it comes to simplification and streamlining. So I would just be a bit cautious there to expect a huge development in this sense. I think you will still need to look at all the individual funding possibilities and the specificities, because the streamlining, that will take a long time.
Okay. Yeah, that's also what I meant in the sense of having in mind that it's different type of funding with different schedules, and then we can go one by one. But maybe Viktorija can present us. I think there is an example of a streamlining action that actually did happen in the framework of Central Europe between RTD project and RTD stakeholders and Interreg stakeholders. And I think this is a very good example on which we could build also for developing this program. And so Viktorija, if you want to tell us maybe a bit more about this call.
Yes, thank you, Julia, for mentioning this good practice example we tested within our last call. But first, to start, what is our understanding as Interreg Central Europe of this project chain program? Indeed, it's a very interesting and appealing idea. And what also Hélène said at the beginning, what is very important for such idea is really to have a vision at its core, a vision that should be based on an issue to be tackled with this program chain. And also from our perspective and in our understanding, such vision needs to really consider the needs of the stakeholder on the one hand side, and on the other, it has to have really a direct link to the territories that are involved. And in such way, projects that are defined to reach such vision can be then funded within different sources from different programs. And what is here important to emphasize that it is not necessarily needed that projects are funded one after each other, but they can also run in parallel. And such structure really then would define a strategic view around the topic to be dealt with. And the topic, for example, is the energy efficiency and sustainable energy, or more specifically, clean energy transition. That is the topic also this event today. And what is also here important to notice, and we have to emphasize, and we have all tested this within our capitalization call, is really not to have a project one after another for the sake of continuation, but have an integrated approach with a vision and strategy that leads then to some concrete territorial changes. And this we have, yes, Ludwig?
Viktorija, you frequently point out that the ultimate goal of all these Interregs is territorial development, right? So it's regional development. Mm-hmm. It's not so much business development, except when the business development serves the regional development. So this is my view to the Interreg. So where is the limit? I mean, from personal experience, we have been doing a lot of alpine space projects, and after a while, they excluded the SMEs from being the project leads, etc., etc. So obviously, Interreg is not meant to basically develop products and companies, right? It's more like developing the territories. So where is the line in there?
Yes, indeed, we are not a business program, and but also maybe unlike Alpine Space, I don't know the program in detail. We do also have within our partnership both public and private institutions, which I mentioned. So these private institutions are not excluded. And when we talk about business development, it really depends what is the project idea and what the project wants to achieve with this idea, with this business development. It is not, let's say, yes or no. Everything depends on a project idea, but what is very important to have this cooperation aspect, and whether we talk about business or we talk about energy or we talk about mobility, it is always, and the focus always needs to be in solving the challenge and the issue that cannot be solved really in one territory, but for which you need a cooperation, and and for which the challenge goes beyond the border.
Yeah,
this is that's the core of course the Interreg, and with that we want especially to bring closer member states and bring closer regions and improve this cooperation aspect.
So
I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, I'm trying to a bit relate it. I mean, I know the Interreg quite well, and I know your limitations and your goals, and it's always a bit territorial development. That's it. But what happens if I'm brave, I write an application, and you say, hey, great application, but it doesn't meet our expectations. So I spent a lot of time, you still cannot fund it. What can we do about it? You send me a three-line letter and say, sorry, we cannot fund it? Or can you help me, take me to, I don't know, the Innovation Fund or somewhere else?
I believe answer to this question would be more or less the same for all programs. If the application is evaluated as not successful, eligible or not successful. Believe all my speakers have a similar experience. Of course, when preparing a proposal, one has to see what are the program requirements and what is actually being funded within a certain program. And here I'm not talking for Interreg in specific, but really in general, which is, I would say, common to all the programs. And
get me right, I don't blame you for that, at least not personally. But what I mean, with this entire discussion about the chains or the networks, we try to overcome a bit this situation. I mean, and I promised to Natalie that I come back to you. Sometimes I believe if you are an innovative SME, for example, it's much easier. And Sebastian said it's not easy to get the innovation fund. Viktorija says maybe you don't fit in the Interreg. So maybe it's much easier to find venture capital for my company or product development. What is the relation, Natalie? I mean, are you are, of course, also in these discussions about venture capital, private investments. What do you propose to a young company that wants to develop something and does not meet neither of the criteria of the funding program? What shall we do, or what shall this company do?
It's a bit too late when there is a realization that it doesn't fit. I think one of the experiences and the takeaways from, well, actually something that was successfully done, and then we discovered that there are additional challenges, was within the AUTI. So we started with the first program, which was the solving technical issues that, of course, not all stakeholders would be able to fully comprehend. They were very technical issues. One is related to the interoperability. But if you are a public sector stakeholder, you don't want to hear semantic interoperability, but you want to hear about the business case that is related to that, or what pain points does it solve. And so here's my first suggestion. We have to have much more user stories related to those technologies, and not only the technology as the proposal. And so we started with the solving technological issues, and then stepped into the larger scale pilot. And the larger scale pilots allow for the much wider engagement of the stakeholders, and also much wider demonstrations with the technology risk management, right? And reaching the scale, and also reaching much bigger consortia, so that you can fund those projects later on, supposedly. But what we've discovered, that the pathway, and I think it was mentioned by a number of speakers, is not that easy either. So when we started thinking about, commercialization of the large scale pilot platform, which is actually on the topic of e-mobility, energy, and the facilitation of services. When you start after the project, it's already too late. So one of the suggestions is to engage the instruments that you mentioned, and maybe additional instruments, after the early stages demonstrations, and not to be concerned about that. And then on the other hand, we have to have this risk management mechanisms and propensity as well from the institutions to step in early enough to stay along the journey. Maybe it's going to be a year and a half, but to be early engaged in this scenario. Plus, none of the solutions that are being commercialized are on the national borders level, because that doesn't make sense. And we have the digital sovereignty goals in Europe, and hence the need to transcend the national borders. And they have to be the solutions that we can easily replicate across the EU. So that's another point that we need to solve for finance as well.
Julia, you have a lot of other questions on your list. At least you had them, but maybe they are answered meanwhile.
Yeah, I think they've been quite well answered. Thank you very much to all of you for this good input, and we'll take it up when developing the program, and we hope you will stay interested, and also to keep in touch with developing the next stages. Starting by joining the breakout session just after the coffee break. But before that, we have a little poll for...
Can I say something?
All the participants. Yes, yeah. Please, Michael.
Sorry to intervene, but I was really interestingly listening. It was very interesting, this session. And I think we started with Hélène, which gave a very visionary also outlook what we have to do in the future. And when I was listening now to the dialogue, which was very interesting, I had a spontaneous impulse that I want to bring on the table. Of course, when we are looking for project chains, and the starting point somehow is the kind of projects that we are having today. And if I think particularly on our topic, I mean, what we are working on is integrated regional energy systems. That's a very complex innovation topic. And normally, and we discover in our programs, in the RDI programs, that most of them are not really mature, and the criteria are not really mature to very effectively support this kind of complex technologies or solutions. That was the reason why we invented this 3-layer model, Ludwig. And when I'm listening, then I also think that in the future, and I mean, I think that most of our projects today will not be very much mature to, I don't know, the Interreg programs or even the European Innovation Fund. But I mean, our vision, I think, should be that in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we will see these complex solutions coming up. And then the question is, will the follow-up financing programs be mature, or don't they need to have a learning curve as well as we had to understand how these complex solutions work? And just a simple example, I mean, when I listen to Sebastian, I think, yeah, of course, I mean, there's a high level of expectations with the Innovation Fund. But it's not only this high level of expectation, I think, but it's only the question how we look and how we judge upon projects. And it's just as a simple example, and this is only a very simplifying example, but when we talk about CO2 reduction, then it's quite easy to say, yeah, if I develop, I don't know, a PV module, then I can compare, you know, the CO2 with the CO2 emissions of a classical power station or so. But in fact, those PV station doesn't work without the storage. And then the question is, how do we judge upon this? And this is only a very simplified, you know, version of what we are going for. These integrated regional energy systems, they will deal with flexibility, they will deal with sector coupling, and it will be not easy to judge simply if these solutions are matured for rollout and if they are effective enablers for the energy transition in simply counting CO2 tons. I mean, I also know, of course, that your criteria are not so simple, but I just take it as an example to put it to the extreme. Yeah. Coming back, not to making my statement too long, couldn't we, as a very important starting point of our project chain program, try to establish a dialogue between different programs, starting to understand together how these complex solutions in the future will look like, so that in a few years from now, when they become mature and we need the follow-up financing programs, because at the moment, maybe also in our projects, we look more upon puzzle pieces of these solutions. So it's more like the kind of innovations that we are used to. So it's a company that provides a solution and they want to scale and so forth. But in the future, we will have to look on complexer solutions that we see in the field, and we need programs that are able to support this complex, you know, investment and innovation challenges that these projects, these complex projects with their consortia will have to overcome the value of death. So my proposal is to think about together, couldn't we establish a dialogue between those programs to understand better that kind of solutions and what we'll need in the future? Because when we start the Clean Energy Transition Partnership now, we are looking on the next 10 years, you know. So it's not only what can we do today for the sake of our projects, but it's really how are we going, how are we looking upon the future, what we're going to see. And I think that particularly this topic that we have in our network, the integrated regional energy systems, is a little bit special compared to other solutions that we will need in the future. And I think this could be a really beneficial starting point to establish such a dialogue.
think that will be definitely important. I don't know, Julia, we have to run a bit, but I interrupted Natalie before, so I try to heal it. You have raised your hand.
Could not. Thank you, Ludwig. The statement that I mentioned that also my colleague suggested to share, and it's exactly what Michael was mentioning as in his first summary. So we believe that the SES project chain concept and the could contribute to the industrial value chains development. And so Michael mentioned the solar PV sector development, which is closely linked to storage. I would also like to mention the green hydrogen linked, and then we can go on to also the platforms development, etc., etc. So I think looking at the projects only from one silo, it's very comfortable from the risk mitigation and financing things, but I think we also have to go a little bit more horizontal and see the impact left and right. And if those projects are also ready, then we should be also investing into the industrial value chains financing. Thank you.
After the coffee break, we will go a bit more vertical and a bit more horizontal, but let's try and get a bit of coffee. Sebastian, last word on that?
Yeah, Ludwig, just a brief comment because I also have to leave the meeting. But indeed, the Innovation Fund, it's, I think, quite well suited for projects that are not only focusing on, let's say, the generation of renewable energy. You can combine, so a renewable energy project that has storage components and maybe even a hydrogen electrolyzer in it, you will be awarded for that in the Innovation Fund. That will increase your chances. So because you can calculate, you can use the calculation methods in 3 ways and combine it. So there is this thinking for the so-called hybrid project. So the potential is absolutely there. And I just wanted to say one thing that Julia had asked me before. What is the role of regions and cities in this context? And I do think if we look at the 7 projects in the large scale call that were financed, there are some that have quite clear links to regions and cities. So one is looking at new ways of handling municipal waste. So that's very easy replicable. And the project where I was involved is a bioenergy plant, which is a carbon capture and storage facility. And this project alone will roughly contribute to lower the emissions of the city of Stockholm by 25%. So you have a very clear link. And if you can have the dialogue with the cities before and show that your solution will actually bring them something which improves the quality of life of their citizens or meeting their climate goals, you will also score higher on the replicability and scalability of the solution. So involving cities and regions is very important also for the Innovation Fund. So I'll leave it like that.
Thank you,
Sebastian,
Sebastian,
for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know if we want to go I think it would be interesting to ask the questions to the audience just before the coffee break, to see also, to have a bit of a feeling what our participants are thinking about this, and then we'll go in a bit of a delayed coffee break, and we'll shorten a bit the sessions afterwards to stay in time. So you should see the Slido question on your chat window, or you can join on the website with the number that's shown on the screen. And so the first question is, what are your expectations from the project training program? And it would be great to hear from you in the audience what your expectations are, and what you expect and what you would like to get.
Can we write as much as we want, or only 2 words?
I think you can write at least 3 words, because first answer is moving projects forward. So the answers are also getting shown there on the window. So moving project forwards, improved collaboration between actors. Yeah, that's good. Great. Okay, I suppose that means it's a good idea. Acceleration of transformation. Yes. Reduce overall costs for developing projects that are then not successful. Of course, that's also something we would like to keep into account. Getting to projects to higher technology readiness levels and at the end to provide business solutions. Yeah, I think that's also a good idea, or like an idea with this going into private financing, set up long-term partnership, reach the target audience. We heard it a lot today that the target audience have to be involved. Have solution for top-ranked projects that are not funded. Okay, thanks a lot. I think we had the second question, share development risks. Yeah, as well. And so this is in terms of expectations, and what do you think could be activities that could be proposed in order to reach or answer these expectations? This will be also discussed. This will be also the topic of the breakout session. Euronews RTTV, this I don't exactly understand. I don't know if it's a mistake or if it's something that has to do with making project financing possibilities visible in also European channels. Monitoring results, okay. I mean, if you want to detail a bit in the chat what you mean also by those two first, that could be a good idea. Monitoring results, is it of the project chain programs or projects in general? Matching, okay, matching, matchmaking. Not only chain of projects, but chain of programs. Okay. So the programs have to cooperate at program level as well. Overarching mapping of different funding programs. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Matching funding programs with the relevant RDI project development phases. Sharing experience, know-how, result, harmonization of developments. Chain of programs beyond funding. Okay. Successful proposal on website. Direct sparring with the heating sector. More about prosumer and user involvement. Thanks a lot. I think you can still continue to put your answers in the Slido, and we'll use that or bring them with you for after the coffee break when we go in the breakout sessions, and we will discuss them further and try to come also with concrete proposals and concrete ideas and cornerstones for developing this project chain program. I would like to thank very much all our panelists for the input, and I invite you, of course, to also join us in the breakout sessions. And we'll keep in touch with you and be very glad if you want to continue this reflection and this development of this program with all the different inputs and cornerstones that we heard now. I think it was a very rich discussion, so thank you very much for that. And I say we could go in the coffee break now and come back at 15:25 for working more in the dedicated breakout sessions. See you in 15 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. We are back in the plenary session. I hope everybody could come back. Thanks a lot. It was at least in our group quite interesting discussion, which was a bit cut by the time. I hope it was not the case for the others and that you could finalize your discussion. But yes, I think we can go now into the presentation, a short presentation of the results, and yeah, be sure that this is only the start, and so we'll find other occasions and other possibilities to continue this discussion, because we see that there's a lot to be discussed and to be said. So I guess we can start with the first breakout session. Katarina, if you want to present the results a bit of the discussion in your breakout session.
Sure. Just going to share screen. Can you see it right now?
Yes.
Okay, regarding the first question on offerings of the project chain program, we saw that it is important to have easy communication channels between the different projects, so that the knowledge is shared and not every project shall reinvent the wheel, let's say. And then what was also very valuable by one funding agency is that we have a big network on which helps us to exchange knowledge, and he hoped that this knowledge exchange or this network will grow with this project chain program. And then there was also the importance raised of data exchange between the projects, such as algorithms, etc. But there was also the problem of GDPR issues, as this might also limit data exchange. And then coming to the benefits. Yeah, as I said before, we have a lot of knowledge and a good network, but then the benefit of this project chain program could be how to spread this knowledge via different communication channels, but also via workshops, etc. Yeah, and then also, as I said before, using the existing knowledge. And another point was an expectation which could be met by the program is that a wider range of different technology readiness level could be covered. So not only from the lower TRLs, but also from higher ones. Then regarding the challenges within the project chain program and how they can be tackled. So that again, there is the problem of communication. So connecting the right people also to right regions, as there are different challenges in different regions. So it's important to answer the question of how this challenge or problem can be tackled in funding. And there is a need for harmonization of these expectations. And therefore, knowledge transfer needs to be done across countries. And there was also an example of the DACH region, where there is a broad connection, but which can still be increased. And as the European Union is more than only DACH region, it should be shaped by all countries with different regulations and so on. So one solution could be engage the different diversity of stakeholders. As there was one researcher speaking, I'm responsible for creating project results, but how they can be brought to market or how they can be implemented and so on. This is also the task of other stakeholders. So it's important to have the diversity of these, and which is in line with this broader audience. And then there was also a suggestion for a metrics for importance of different fields in different countries, which refer to the challenge of these different challenges in the different regions and countries. So these are the major results that were raised in our group session.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions regarding the results so far?
Not from my side. Thanks a lot. You can, of course, use the chat if you also want to raise the questions, and I will maybe introduce the results of our session. And of course, the people who are with me in the session are also invited to comment if you want. So yes, we started the discussion with thinking or like stating that we should start with what is already existing and build on the information that's already there, because there is a lot of information available, and maybe coordinate this information, create an inventory or one-stop shop where people can have access to this information. Maybe I specified at this stage that we discussed mainly the question of services or what can be offered by the project and program to interested participants and potential project partners. And the result of the Interreg Central Europe dedicated call for joining research and Interreg or like regional development topics showed that 70% of participants were not aware of research results. So despite all the information available, possibly sometimes project partner don't, their working Interreg don't go and check the research results. So how can we tackle this? So, for example, one idea would be to build on the existing and try and make more information available. But then it was said that indeed the national contact points for each of the programs have this duty or this task to actually link the different funding and give advice to potential partners where they can apply. And maybe there is some work to do with national contact points to also make them aware of the different funding if by working with some project partners they realize they cannot apply in the funding they represent, so that they can indicate them a bit even better than they are doing now. And so what we saw also is that it's possible to integrate fundings, because this is also what happened in this Central Europe call with or it's possible to integrate like research partners and regional development partners, but like how do we do this? And this was I think where we went as a solution maybe, or a conclusion for at this stage, which would be to try and join forces between different programs to make this happen, and make the clean energy transition happen. And we would need to understand really, as also Viktorija said earlier, or Michael, what is our vision for this and what we want to achieve, because the mere succession of different projects is not a goal as such. So we want to reach objectives in terms of energy transition, and we would have to set those objectives and this vision to also develop this program. And then we could find solutions by having a discussion or dialogue between the different programs on how to set up the cooperation and for example, organize different activities to of cross information so that people in different programs are aware of what's happening in the other programs. I think this is a bit the summary of our discussion. I don't know if anyone wants to add something or have any question. Ludwig, what do you think about all this?
Yes, thanks for presenting that. My first question would be, we started out with the idea of having a project chain. Now we have an input that says having one project after the other is not a good goal. So now this is a bit of contradiction. Did you discuss that?
Yes, I think it was the idea of just a succession of projects, so that the projects should really answer the needs, and not to that. The idea is not just to allow projects to continue if they're not answering the needs of the territories and these needs, and then that goes to the question of how do we integrate those needs, a bit what also Hélène was saying in the keynote. Hélène Chraye, a bit how do we integrate the needs of the citizen and the needs of.
So what I understand, it's the goal is not the project chain. The project chain is a means to an end.
Exactly.
Better get to the needs or to the market success or what so.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's
there's
fine.
a little bit more behind this discussion. I think that
Michael, you have the wrong microphone on. Sorry. Remember the one from this morning?
I don't know. So now,
Yeah.
No.
Why it always changes?
Now this one, yes.
It's better now.
Yeah.
I just wanted to try to explain a little bit more of this discussion. It's not only, I mean, I absolutely agree with this is a part of the interpretation that Julia said, but I think there's another part that is important. I think we need to develop a sound understanding of what is the role of the different programs that we envisage in mirroring the understanding of what are the kind of solutions that we are after. Yeah. We have to develop together an understanding, what do we envision, which kind of solutions and also which kind of projects will come up in the next years. It's not only that, I mean, I absolutely agree. I think Ursulia made that point also, that we have to start from what we have and make possible what is possible there. I agree on this, but I think it's also important to look into the future. So I think an important part of the Project Chain program is to find ways to develop together with other programs this sound understanding what will happen in the coming years, and is our environment that we are creating, is it mature to develop that, to support this development, and here I think is at least on my end, I think a particular and extraordinary role that the JPP SES, or in the future the Transition Initiative 5 of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership might have, by trying to help to understand what kind of solutions and kind of projects are we going to support in the coming years to come to the goal that we want. And I think there is something, because, and that brings me to another point that I want to make. We have to link the programs, you said, and that's correct. And the first important link that we have to make is the link to the Driving Urban Transitions Partnership, because they have started with this ideas and questions already 3, 4, 5 years ago. And they already have gone, through this phase of, it's just we give the information, we have to inform them and so forth. We have these learnings already. And I think they have made, I
feeling, I don't know, really counting, but feeling 20 workshops on this, where we start now. We have to start from where they already are in their analysis, because of course their goal is a little bit different, but the basic problem is the same. We want to fund complex projects, complex developments that only can happen if you combine different kinds of financial sources, because otherwise you don't get the things in the field that you want to test and that you want to work on. So you want to innovate in a new way. And therefore it's important to connect also to them and understand what they have already found out so far. Yeah, and not start from zero.
Miguel, isn't that the discussion that we had, I don't know, 5 years ago, when we said we cannot wait, we are in a hurry, we need disruptive changes. We cannot wait for a 4-year project to end before we start the next 4-year project and then the other 4-year project. Somehow we need to speed up or go parallel or whatever. And you know, I mean, you know that I have been working for Intel in the 80s. In the 80s, when they decided to develop the 83860 processor, at the moment when they decided to develop the processor, they installed a marketing team to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And the marketing team sometimes was faster than the developers of the processor. So they sold the 386 while the technical people were not even ready. But they parallelized that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if in our funding supporting worlds we can parallelize that, but definitely we cannot do 1 4-year project after the other to have a solution on the market in 12 years. This doesn't work. But I have no clue how to implement that.
Yeah, but I think somehow I think our ideas are matching. I don't want to take too much of the time because others might also want to say something. But I think if we could find, because the question is what kind of information is needed, and I think what was said by what is her name from the Interreg program before was important. Because here on the one hand side, I see a clear need from this from their program that we could help to fill by contributing in the R&D outcomes to provide them. But if we could start with this common understanding of what we want and start to communicate things also. Because she said it's important that we know where we want to go to and what we want, and then we have to communicate it also to our stakeholders, and then it will happen rather than just even if you give them the information. I mean, our projects, the information that the Interreg program exists, they might still not think that this is something that they could connect to and how to connect to. So maybe this selling is to start communicating it together more. I mean, I don't dare to say to arrange something like a combined call or something. Maybe that's already too far. But, starting to communicate it together, that on both sides there is the willingness to go for this. But then we need a little bit of more of a clear reasoning behind why and what we want to achieve. And this needs that common understanding of the kind of development that we want to trigger here.
Thank you. Thank you.
How is it going on now, Julia? Did you discuss the next steps? What are the next steps after today?
We didn't discuss in details, but we will definitely follow up because I think there's a high interest. And
Can make 2 proposals. One proposal, very concrete, would be let's organize a workshop with the driving urban transition people, with their supporting team and with their team. We can also we can discuss if we do that on a Friday meeting first and then prepare maybe a joint workshop of their funding programs and our funding programs, but we have to work on this together. We have to take up the learnings that they already had into our community. That's important. And also give them some knowledge that we have about this kind of system solutions that they are lacking, and Hans Günther is running after me every day to contribute more to their discussions. So this is one important thing. And the other thing that I saw, at least in the discussion in the breakout group, very clearly is that from the Interreg side, there was this attempt, and she was talking about the success where they tried really to bring that research outcomes closer to their project community. And I think this is something, I don't know if you have already talked about this in detail, but this is something that I think we should go into more a deeper discussion with the Interreg program, how we could, because this is something like, to me, it was like, or Sorja said, building on what we have, because we have the results, they have their program. So maybe this is something that we could do quite quickly in the near future, but we have to understand what we really could contribute.
Yeah, exactly. I think there is a step also then with other funding programs, and as a first step, and then go back to all of you, to all of our participants with maybe a proposal and some also specific activities or dedicated activities that we can propose then. I think that would be the idea. Is there any other input or any other reaction on this this topic? Anyone want to enter the discussion? Good, then thank you very much.
Getting tired.
Yeah,
it was a long day.
It was a long and rich day, yeah.
But very interesting day, I found. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And yes, so then I think we are reaching the end of the day. And yeah, I would like to thank you all for the participation, to thank all our speakers, panelists, and keynote speakers of today. And I would like to thank also my colleagues in the team, Katarina, Dorothea, Lisa, who also made it happen, not only technically, but with all the contents. And I invite you all tomorrow for to have a more deeper look on the project results. There will be project pitches, there will be aggregated results presentation, there will be also sessions directly organized by the project. So this is where it gets very concrete on what the projects have achieved. So that will be quite interesting, I think. And in the afternoon, there are the working group meeting, kicking off the working group work for 2021-2022 and the selection of reference documents, etc. So yeah, we hope to see you tomorrow as well. And I would like to thank you again for this very good day today. Thanks.